Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Crypto Analyst here and welcome back to another Bitcoin technical analysis. And today I wanted to talk about the most recent price action in Bitcoin because it seemingly bottomed out at this 9.8k range, which is a higher swing low, and then bounced all the way up to around 11.1k before seeing rejection around this 50 EMA. Now this double bullish divergence did play out on the MACD. This is something that I was talking about on the Discord along with the RSI. The RSI target hit almost spot on, and so with this all happening, the real question is where do I believe Bitcoin will go from here? And today I'm going to be talking about exactly that. So if you guys are interested, go and stick around for the video, and do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button as it does help out the channel a lot. But that being said, let's go ahead and dive on into this. Now with Bitcoin actually setting a higher swing low over here, yes, it is below the 200 EMA, which ideally isn't a good thing, but it's still a higher swing low. We can see that our last one that bounced off of the 200 EMA was around 9.6, and this one was around 9.8. So it was roughly around, give or take around $200 above the previous swing low. And with it bouncing over here, the bounce actually doesn't look too promising, because what we can actually see from this bounce is that former resistance is now being, or former support is now being turned into resistance. And we can see this from this area over here. We knew that this around $11,000 mark, this $11,100 mark was support previously over in here, and now that it's turned resistance along with the 50 EMA, it's not necessarily a good thing for Bitcoin. So do I think that it's possible that we break this, previous low of 9.6k? I certainly think that it's more likely, but what I was looking at is this falling wedge of sorts that I was talking about with a couple of people in the Discord last night. And yes, this actually did look really good. If there was any time for Bitcoin to bounce over here, the time was right here. It would have been a perfect area. There's the regressional trend out of absolutely nowhere to help me highlight why this would have been a good time for this to bounce. So if you're looking at this from a regressional trend standpoint, this was the bottom of the regressional trend. All this could have been was a piercing candle before the bounce, and that's exactly what we saw. We saw the bounce in actual former support now turned resistance, which makes me believe that it's very possible that we actually break this, previous low of around 9.6k and even head lower from here. Now, does this mean that this little bull market that we've had is over? I think the answer for that is ultimately no. But, no one can tell for sure as of yet, because one of the most common things on Bitcoin is that it retraces to the golden fib, otherwise known as the 618 fib retracement. It's kind of scary and almost funny in a sense as to how often this guy is used on the Bitcoin to USD charts. I mean, if anyone does fibs a lot on Bitcoin, at least over the past year or so, you would have known that this is by far the most common retracement on Bitcoin. It doesn't even happen in stocks as much as it happens on Bitcoin. It's, that's just why it's so ironic. That's why we labeled it the golden fib. So is it possible that Bitcoin can fall all the way down to the $7,250 mark and still bounce and continue this uptrend from here? I think the answer is ultimately yes, it's possible. But ideally, you really wouldn't want to fall below this support area, because this is, essentially our previous layer of, it's our previous layer of layered support. And so I've talked about this previously and how we've created the layers as we've gone up over here, being our first layer, our second layer, our third layer, and now our fourth layer. If you're falling more than 2 layers down, it's generally not a good sign. And in fact, it's probably a sign that you could be looking at a potential short-term market reversal on whatever you're looking at, whatever asset it may be. So with looking at Bitcoin over here, again, ideally, I wouldn't want it to fall below this area over here, this consolidation support. If it did, again, it's still not saying it's impossible, because technically this could be right in that area before it bounces. But, overall, I would ideally like to have it hold up here. Do I think it's going to happen? I'm not really sure. It certainly doesn't look too bullish right now. A very, very clear lower swing high for me, and what looks to be a very weak higher swing low for the time being. It does look like this 50 EMA does want to cross back down over the 200 EMA on this Bitcoin 4-hour chart. So, if that does happen, it would be a death cross on the 4-hour, which again is not ideal. We haven't seen that happen on this chart since, man, way back here. I mean, since, February of this year. So that's when it crossed over, and it hasn't crossed back since. So if that does happen, it would lead me to be even more so bearish. This rejection from up in here isn't necessarily a great sign either. But, you know, the MACD has been absolutely phenomenal lately. We talked about this twice now. I talked about this in the Discord most recently. I don't know if I mentioned this in a video, but I know I was talking about this in Discord with a couple of other guys. If you guys aren't in there, it's completely free, no strings attached. There's literally just a link to that in the description down below. But most recently, we had quadruple bullish divergence on the MACD, played out beautifully. Now we had a very clear double bullish divergence, something that I was watching for. That played out recently. We can tell from the oscillators over here that this is a higher swing low on the oscillators, which is technically a good sign for the bulls. But what I cannot unsee over here is this triple bearish divergence forming on the MACD of Bitcoin now. So now that this bullish divergence has played out, what this is telling me is that upon every swing high on the MACD over here, there is lower levels of positive momentum coming into this guy. I can also tell very clear over here from this RSI, yes, we did come from a very good bounce point. We bounced, over here at this overbought territory. We had a nice bounce. It's very possible that it continues upwards from here, but I think for the most part, it's still not necessarily in a good spot. So moving forward from here, guys, I want to go back to the candle chart. There's really not much to tell from the RSI over here. Again, it bounced from this overbought area. It came just below this 30 range, bounced from here all the way up to around 45, 46, and now appears to be coming back down. I think overall, I think the sentiment of this market for the short-term time being is it is a little bit bearish. Yes, this could have been a falling wedge, and if this was a falling wedge, which you can very well argue that it was because it had, as we can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 touches on support, and then 1, 2, 3 touches on resistance, and now we can tell that former resistance is now support as we can zoom in onto this little candle body over here, and we can see that this guy wicked down, and in fact, 2 wicks down. This green wick over here bounced off of former resistance, and now this red wick that we have over here has also bounced off of former resistance, so we can now tell that former resistance has turned support in the short term. I just don't know if it's going to be enough. We're going to have to watch this really closely. It needs to break above this 200 EMA in this former resistance area if it really wants to do anything. But I think overall, guys, what we're looking at over here is a potential new low on Bitcoin. And when I say that, I don't mean like new yearly lows, but I mean like new swing lows of around this 9.6K area. I think that it's very possible that sooner or later that this guy is going to actually break. Bitcoin is going to actually see a newer low up below that range, maybe towards the lower 9,000s before it wants to bounce again. But I think ultimately the macro, the long-term scale of crypto over here is actually looking still pretty good. I think as long as it holds the 618 as this is my secondary support, Bitcoin will be entirely okay. There are, again, 3 different layers of support that we have all the way down to $4,200. Now, if it breaks that, I don't think it will. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't see Bitcoin going back down to new yearly lows or new, 12-month lows over here. I don't think 3.1K is going to break, but, there's plenty of room for this guy to bounce around in here. Again, 618 is my overall target. I think if that breaks, I would be very bearish on Bitcoin once again. But for the short-term time being, I think it's okay to be a little bit bearish, but I think you still have to look at this from a macro trend. In that it's still in a very well uptrend. In fact, that if it does hold this area and if it does want to bounce from here, this would simply just be the bottom of the regressional trend, which would lead me to believe that Bitcoin is going for a new high or at least back up to resistance somewhere in the low 13K range, in the least, if it does want to bounce here. So there's opportunities both ways. I do like to talk about both sides of the argument because I think that you can't just be lopsided and tunnel visioned on one side and you miss what's happening from the counter argument. So hopefully you guys were able to enjoy that and get something out of this and it was able to help in an educational manner. Again, nothing I said is legal, financial, or tax advice in any way, but I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Let me know in the comment section down below, are you guys bullish or are you guys bearish, and let me know why. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.